I'm McKinney Smith. In 2009, while going through a divorce, I decided to jump straight into entrepreneurship. In 2012, I lost my sister and asked myself, what legacy do I want to leave behind? Since then, I've become a serial entrepreneur, helping other women publish their books, produce their podcasts, and reach their big goals to walk in their greatness. I realized the importance of sharing our stories of resilience and how it can be another's guide to walk in a manner worthy of their calling. We are blessed to be a blessing, so get ready to be blessed with an inspiring testimony.
Hey, Legacy Leavers, thank you for joining us on the Wakama Stilettos podcast, the top 1.5% most popular show in the world, where we have conversations with extraordinary women that are letting us step into their shoes. I help women to own their voice, to create impact, prosperity, and legacy. I get inspired when I see another woman succeeding, but what interests me more is her backstory and her mindset on how she got there. So today's guest is about to bless us with her testimony, and since you're already here, you may as well subscribe. Today we have Lisa Raw. She is a creative director and business manager. She's the owner, president, and CEO of LR Brand and Events, specializing in exclusive event planning, video production, content, and talent management. She's worked with Jeezy, Chris Brown, Young Thug, and so much more. So please welcome to the show, Lisa Raw.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I am fantastic. I am grateful. Thank you so much, Lisa, for agreeing to come on and share your story with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be on your show, and I am ready to unwind and be a part of your whole world right now.
I am super excited. So interesting enough, I mean, I have been following you on social media for a very long time. I think I first reached out earlier this year due to I'll get to it later, but due to a post that you had put up. But you're originally from Toronto, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
In Toronto.
Yes, girl. So I am here in Toronto.
And you live in Toronto. Are you from Toronto? You live in Toronto.
So born and raised in Scarborough.
Oh, nice.
Yes, but I presently live in Durham region, so east of the city.
Ooh, love it. Okay, my Canadian.
Yes. So I just wanted to shout out all of our Canadian listeners. I think 50% of our listeners this month have been from Canada. So shout out to all of the local Toronto people.
Yes, for sure. My Toronto people. Okay, I love it. I'm hype now.
Yes. Yes. So, okay, before we get to where you are presently and understand your journey, as an icebreaker question, I love to ask this question because I feel like it's always connected somehow to who we become or who we end up being and what we end up doing. So, as kids, we have these vivid imaginations of, life before society and our family tells us to be realistic. So I would love to know, what did Lisa want to be when she was a little girl?
Oh man, what didn't I want to be? Well, let me say this. I was obsessed with Mariah Carey and Madonna. So in my mind and in my spirit, I was like, I'm going to be an artist when I grow up. That's definitely what I thought music. I was always musically inclined. Like my passion was driven to sound and fashion. Always obsessive. Always obsessed with that. But I also was obsessed with sports, and I loved boxing because my father used to make me play every sport you could imagine because he really thought I was going to be his son. So he had put me in so many, I did literally from baseball, boxing, kickboxing, oh my gosh, soccer. I did probably the most common sport I did was swimming. But, so I thought I was going to do something in music. I also wanted to be a boxer. And then I also wanted to own a restaurant and do something in radio, television. Literally, I could not focus. I tell you this much, but that's where my it was in the creative world. Anything
Mm-hmm.
like that, but anything that was competitive, I wanted to be a part of. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's kind of hard for me to narrow it into one thing, but I thought it was like, okay, I'm gonna be something creative in that yeah in that
Okay.
field.
So tell us your story then. How did you get to where you are today? Um, Walk us through that journey.
Um, Based off of well, I started writing when I was really young. I'm probably gonna say at about 8 or 9 years old. I probably didn't have the most normal household upbringing, just based off of the two dynamic households, based off of my mother and father. They weren't married. I think they divorced when I was about one. My father is a very strong Muslim man, and my biological mother, she's Hispanic. However, my father also, he he was more of Nation of Islam, and he had been to prison. He just had a different perspective on life when he was, now in society in regards to his family. But I think just dealing with that return to the world,
Mm-hmm.
from being in prison and shifting from, San Diego, coming to Canada. He also was also a victim of, drug abuse. My
Mm-hmm.
mother, on the other hand, my biological mother, we didn't have a healthy relationship. So I was in foster care group home from, I probably started running away when I was about 8 or 9 years old, to be honest.
Wow.
My adoptive mother, she's from Tobago, and she came into place like from early in my life. But however, like my aunties, they did play roles. It just to raise me to, to get into, growing up, because I think when you're a young child and you're seeking parental love, or, that stability, when you look at other kids who have like a healthy household, or even when you go to school and you see, your friends or your peers, getting picked up, and you see happy dad, happy mom, no matter what, you feel very, like it sad in a sense. Like a child doesn't know how to compute that. So I was dealing with a lot of different family troubles that not like anyone I knew was going through. However, I think just writing was something that helped me communicate that, because I always loved music.
Mm-hmm.
I was a CD, cassette playing junkie, like recording radio songs, pop, like rewinding it. There was learning lyrics via rewind, fast forward. It was, that was the era, in
Mm-hmm.
the 90s. That's how we learned. And you watch whether it was your MTV, your BET, or Much Music, getting music videos. So I was always interested in sound. So writing was my passion. I probably started taking poetry as a way of, I guess, like as my sense of therapy. So I probably started getting like probably really good at it at the age of 13 and so forth. Um, and I created my own character, if that my own, I guess in the sense how artists will have their names, or, their
Mm-hmm.
stage name, I created my own. And that was my thing. So during recess, you would probably see me rapping, or you would see me writing. I was obsessed with writing, and even drawing sketches, because I had a vision of myself like, maybe one day I'll be famous. I'll wear this. I don't know. I was nuts. But that's how I actually started, was via spoken word. And so when I used to perform and just go to these like open mic sessions, which is a bunch of local, just everybody that was like local, that was in the artsy underground field, from rap and the hip hop sound. Um, they During my poetry, they'd be like, "Man, you're Lisa, you're Lisa Raw," and I was like, "Oh shoot." I said, "That's hard." I'm like, and so my name originally originated from the people that used to come like in the audience and watch me perform.
Mm.
And yeah, it was just the stuff that I would say, and whether it was from pain, or whether it was anything that could do with like even just empowering your sexuality, being a female, just anything of that nature of even like not understanding society and crime and policing, things that I just questioned from young. People would always say like, yo, you're so raw, you're so hardcore with it. So I used that as my name, and I started to figure out ways to, I'm like, I grew up in like the neighborhood that I was raised in was Flemington Park. This is where my father lived. And so I started just working with like just some of the like, the local mandem in the area where we did like stop the violence barbecues. And I was like, let me reach out to people that I knew, because at that point I was already intertwined with people who were artistic. So when we would put together like these barbecues or these stage performances, I would organize it. And mind you, it's like, I was young. I might have been like 16, 17, like super young, trying to, get into this. Of course, I'm also trying to like perform myself, but I was just working on relationships. So that was my first intro to society, I guess. My first intro into the industry per se without really knowing it, but that just via networking from writing. It later transitioned to me. I was like, how do if I want to be, around this world, because I used to just listen to radio personalities, and like Andy Martinez was huge, New York, New York content was massive. So I was like, okay, I'm like, how do I become, or how do I like study that? So I started my own, I guess it was like a Sunday night show with a few other folks that I was working like that, just like that were photographers and, DJs, and all my friends were in sound. Either they were a DJ, they were producers, or they were working on music, or they were writers, but it was still on the very creative side. And that helped me. I was like, let me start interviewing people. From interviews and obviously from the writing, I was comfortable with speaking. I wasn't scared of the microphone. I wasn't scared of audience. I was more aggressive, and that might have been just from the years of my father putting me in sport. I was very competitive, and I just loved anything into like that aesthetic. So I was like, let's do it. So obviously, I wasn't going to be a boxer, but I looked at whatever I was going to be in, and like whether it was track, whether I was playing baseball, whether I was playing basketball, that was my court, being competitive in that nature. So hosting or doing interviews started was my second entry point. And then I'll say, because of the comfortability that I had on the mic, and my friends were DJs, they're like, yo, you need to start doing parties. And I started hosting. I was literally a female MC in the club. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. But I was like, my kids could do it. If Lala could do it, I could do it. So I was literally, the MC at a couple venues, and just, whether it was busting jokes, doing some stand up, and they might have been rusty jokes, but hey, listen, I was getting the girls hype and the man them ready to go party. So yeah, that's how it originally started, and then it transitioned to me trying to just pull off my own party, and because I always worked, I was, if you could only imagine, any kid that probably was in foster care and group home, they know that, your hustling stage starts from early, because you're not relying on a parent, or you don't have that household. It's like you against the world. So I was like the ultimate hustler. Like like if it was even me stealing stuff at the candy store or at Loblaws or whatever the case was, but these are things I didn't like. High school, I'm selling gum, I'm selling this. I'm like, it did like anything that you could imagine. I got jobs at Skydome. At the end of the shift, they would throw out, not that they were garbage, but in a sense, they were like, okay, well, customers didn't buy it for the day. Cotton candy. I would take these bags that they were going to throw out. I would go on Young Street and literally sell them. Like, wow. I was the ultimate hustler. So I was like, anything that you could do to like make money and generate funds, I was doing that for, for the bigger cause. And this is all stuff that, it sounds crazy when I, reflect, but I'm happy that I always had that ambition, because I never wanted to settle. Just like I was never too proud, or never too, just the hustle of just trying to be great or get to the next situation was always what I wanted and felt like I needed. So I think once I started doing parties, and I was just, like I said, like social. I worked so many jobs. I was able to learn owners of venues when I was working downtown Toronto. If I was like in the back, like being a cleaner, being a line chef, or being a hostess at a restaurant, it didn't matter. I was just learning the people that ran the operation. So when I wanted to throw a party, they had known me just because like I was always working. You know, it's like I didn't have the family dynamic that like most people had. I didn't have the opportunity to even dive deep into passion or study like how my other peers are doing or my other family members. Like I had to really like hustle because it was like me against the world, like do or die. So I spent a lot of time just working, getting to know people. And owners just, you know, they just, like I say, they gravitated to this young girl who was overly working. And so when I wanted to throw my first party, the venue, I think, if I can remember, it might have been, I don't know if it was DNA or La Rouge. I cannot remember at the top of my head, but this is many, many years ago in Toronto, like early 2000. Okay. And I think the owner of the venue might have rented this out to me for, I don't even think I gave him $1,000. He was like, you could have it, throw your party. Because I was so used to throwing like barbecues or like, you know, these, like I said, stuff in Flemo, just random events. But this one particular, he was like, no, I'll let you do, like, you got it. It was like my birthday party. And that was literally my first time. And it was just that feeling of, all right, making money at the door, putting together the DJ, you know, inviting the women and the guys that I knew. And, you know, it was mad hood, but it was mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was lit too. And it was definitely from there. I just started, I took that moment and it was like my rush. It was my high because, you know, it's one thing when you're, you know, like I said, I was like, you know, I was scrambling. I was like hustling in these streets, trying to make ends meet, trying to get myself better. And just based off of my situation, you know, my father, like I said, he was, you know, unfortunately, you know, at that point in life, you know, really addicted to drugs. I'm like, I wanted to take care of him. So at that point, I was just like, whatever I need to do to make funds. It was my whole, like that was my only focal point. Like that was my end goal. So the party was something that gave me a rush that I actually enjoyed, that I didn't feel was me scrambling in these streets or trying to make things work. This was me like putting something together and using my talent and just like, you know, like my word of mouth, my hustle of, all right, come through, but I need you to pay, woo, woo, woo. This is going to go towards that. And that's how it really, really started, to be honest. But poetry and writing, like as crazy as that sounds, that was what got me to that point.
Wow. So like you said in the beginning, you sound like, you know, you were able to tap into all of your, I'm going to say your creativity to basically survive. So what made you decide to move to Miami?
Well, I think after a while of years of throwing events, and I had a phenomenal team working with in Toronto. And I think I've learned from other people's mistakes, and they were older people, of course, but I was able to learn the logistics and the operations, what makes a party, the layout of tables, just things that were different, getting to know people's personalities and egos, the artist, the manager, the talent, the entourage. I think I reached a point in my career in Toronto that I was at the ceiling. It was a great ceiling, but I felt I reached my ceiling. And I think I've always been a visionary from a child, because I couldn't focus on one particular thing. I had so many aspirations that I always wanted to blend them all in. Even if I was going to do a party, okay, but I still want to look the flyest at my own party. I also want to give people the experience of, okay, I love food. So what if I were to do, you know, some hors d'oeuvres or find a fire chef or something that I was always thinking outside the box, or let me start some, you know, interview segment where I could still branch off my company and get the talent to know us. And we're not just a party, we're a brand. So my brain was always thinking at a faster rate than someone else may have been. And I felt like just where I was at in Toronto, I reached my ceiling. And then also in the world of, you know, entertainment industry, sometimes you're going to meet people that have the mind frame, well, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Because they're accustomed to running a business a certain type of way. But where I was like, okay, it may not be broken, but that doesn't mean it can't be better.
Right.
And so my ambition was more to get more. I wanted more. And I just felt that if I'm great in my city, and mind you, nothing was holding me back. It's not like I was married. I didn't had children. I had bought I had bought my own property at the age of 24. Like that, my goal was to buy my own property at the age of 25. I bought that at 24. I purchased my car. I did things that many of my peers didn't achieve, but I was so focused on hustling. Like I said, I was like, just by any means necessary, I'm going to make this money count. That I was like, okay, it's not like I have the fondest relationship with, I love my adopted mother, God rest her soul, she had passed in November, but, with her encouragement and love that she had poured into me, she was like, go for it. And, and like I said, it was cool. Like at that point, I mended relationship with my biological mother, but it wasn't enough for me to stay. My father had passed. And I just looked at my closest friends, which they're still my friends to this day. But neither one of them were in my field. They weren't in the, they were more institutionalized. They went to school, they worked 9 to 5s or whatever, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was the oddball in the bunch because I didn't have that foundation growing up. Nothing in my life was stable. So I didn't have the stability of just focusing on one thing. I had to make several things work to survive. So my mentality when I became an adult was, I need more and I need different. So I was like, if I could be great in my city, and this is cool now, right? I was able to, beat these statistics, these odds of not being a victim of my environment, not being a victim of my biological parents' trauma and so forth. And even though I was dealing with trauma, I wasn't handicapped by it. I was like, I'm going to leave. Of course, I've gotten in trouble by the police and I had things that happened, and I'm sure like anyone, like I think when you go back into that era of Regent Park and Flummo, you could only imagine like what that era was like, right?
Yes.
But I think at that point I just had a moment. It was epiphany. I was like, all right, I'm making all this money, and I finally did this, but I didn't feel fulfilled spiritually. I felt like it wasn't my alchemy to just stay there. So I'm like, let me go searching. So I made a big shift in the beginning of 2015. And I literally traveled for 3 months to decide where do I want to move to and where do I want to go. And it was also to clear my mind from working, but just to enjoy life, God, nature, and just have a moment with myself and prayer. And my heart said, like, okay, let's go to the States and let me explore it. And when I did get to the States, I'm going to say it was probably about March of 2015. That's when I was like, let me see what city makes sense. And eventually I focused on Miami because I decided it was the easiest, 3 hours from Toronto. It's also like the Vegas of the South. And I felt like what I was going to bring and what I could implement would make perfect sense. Like I felt like it didn't matter. Like whomever my competition was, female wise, like I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for the jugular. And if it was any male that was in this field, I felt like they would have been impressed because I had my resume was already lavish at that point. Based off of like the people that I had worked with, I built so much relationships that I felt like I was already at value and resourceful by the time I made it to Miami.
So first, my condolences about the loss of your father and your adopted mom. You shared so many things in here, and some things I want to unpack, but I'm just like, only our Canadian audience may understand that. So I'm like, okay, where do I start? So one, you said, you were promoting in Toronto in the early 2000s.
Yes.
You may know my older brother, actually. He was promoting in Toronto around the same time. Yeah, we'll discuss that later offline. But I feel like there's like some connection there. You probably know who he is. But I love how your drive to not, like it sounded as though, yes, you were grateful for where you were, but you knew there was more to life, and you weren't afraid and you didn't shy away from exploring and putting in the work and taking the risk to do more, to build more. And I love hearing that in women, because I feel like we're conditioned to hear about men going after their dreams and their desires, and women being complacent and settling. So I love hearing stories of women who were like, yeah, no, like I wanted more. I'm thinking outside of the box. And I love that the way that you even when you made the decision to move to the States, and you said you took the 3 months to explore and to pray and to, find peace. Like, as much as I admire the hustle, I admire women who are grounded. And I think there was an interview that I had listened to you do, and, even just how you spoke about even how you presently view yourself, and, how, if we're supposed to be a reflection of God, children of God, like our bodies are a temple of God. And I just love your perspective.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it was like, that's not something that, like happened overnight. I just think, I think anyone that, that kind of grew up in any type of hood or borough, and, they were, part of generational trauma, and they may have not known it, but I think these children that experience a different life compared to someone they go to school with also have it's like a different chromosome or a different DNA than the rest of the people, because they have to turn on and turn off sometimes even emotion, and like just for survival in a sense. Like, I couldn't go to school and discuss my father's drug issues, right? I couldn't go to school and discuss my mother's abuse issues. Like, there's certain things I just couldn't, because it was taboo. And then you also think, like, dang, like, I'm not trying to talk to these people, to the police, or anybody in the system, because you see what it has done to your people in your neighborhood. And so I think there's a way of, like, you have to trick yourself as a kid. And I think, like, it's like, it was unfortunate. I know, growing up for myself particularly, I was like, I can't wait till I'm older. Like, the age of 16 was like my get out of free jail card. Like, that was like, I cannot wait. I remember being like 8 or 9, just be like praying to be 16 years old, to be out of the system, because that's the only time I could emancipate myself from that environment. But in the same regards, it's like, it's either you make it or break it. And I just, I didn't think I was going, like, I don't think I even thought that far ahead. But like I said, I think a lot of, when I work with children, and when I go to, like, like, even in different organizations, or I go to the Boys and Girls Club and I check up on, like, some little kids, like, I just check up on them to see how they're doing. You could see that they either have it or they don't have it. It's like, it's something that's innate in you, where you're either born with, or you just, I don't know. But I think just that was something that was my lifeline without me even knowing it.
I can completely relate, because so for our Toronto listeners, I grew up in Cataraqui and Malvern. So, so for our international listeners who are listening, like, when you talk about growing up in Flemington Park and stuff, like, whatever area you live in, think about growing up in, the hood, or what people call, like, government housing, or any of those areas. And like you said, you go to school with people who live in the suburbs, and they live in a big fancy house, and, there's certain issues that they can't relate to, but it also shapes you differently. And I think maybe that's why I admire your hustle.
Thank you. Yeah, like, it's like the best way for me to describe, for I guess for any Miami listeners, would be the comparison of Overtown versus Liberty City. And that's probably, Overtown is owned, well, I won't consider it anymore, but it's like marketed to be like the first 48. And that's like what the stigma Regent Park and Flemington Park was at that time, because there were two hoods at war. And it was like, are you from Region? Are you from Flemo? It's the same thing from, so you can, like, it's the same thing, Malvern versus Galloway.
Yep.
Right. But I mean, like, those are things that you kind of deal with and you live with, because the blessings of Toronto, we had such a multicultural city. And even in, school, we engaged with so many different races. And so many different people's cultural backgrounds. We were probably the first generation born into Canada, or we had peers that just came from another island or came from another country. But we were very diverse. But the only thing that separated us, I wouldn't necessarily say even the culture thing, because I think we were so accepting of other people's culture. It was more or less when you got to your neighborhood, and that's where your division really began.
Yeah. Yes. I also wanted, like, that's a great point that you made. Like, I've been doing a lot of, I'm going to say, I don't like to call it like the whole diversity and equity inclusion work, but like, speaking on panels about topics like this. And it's like proximity breeds comfort. So, when you grow up in the areas that we grew up in that are so multicultural, we're more accepting of different cultures. But then when you have people who grew up, far off out into the suburbs and they only have, their culture, and then they come around other cultures and it's almost like because they didn't grow up with that familiarity or that comfort of the different cultures, it's almost like, well, if you're different, they separate you or any of those things. Like, I wanted to also give a shout out because you mentioned that your adopted mom was from Tobago, and we have a huge amount of listeners in Trinidad and Tobago. And last week, well, actually the last 2 weeks, the last 2 episodes that have aired have hit top charts in Trinidad and Tobago. I think last week's episode hit in the top 3. So shout out to our listeners out there.
Shout out to the Trinis, boy.
my daughters are half Trini as well. So
love it.
Oh, yeah. Love it. Okay, so I wanted to quickly touch on, and I believe it may have been, I don't know how long ago, but I feel like it was somewhere around the beginning of the pandemic. You had made a post on Instagram, and at the time, I was paying attention, but I said to myself, once I feel that you've started your healing from that, then I would love to have you on here to share your story. So you had posted a while back about an experience that you had where you were sexually assaulted at an event.
Yes.
And I wanted to touch on that a little bit, not only, not to focus on the sexual assault, but what you've learned from the experience, how you have changed from that, and just any lessons that women who are listening may be able to gain from that, and to also bring awareness to certain things, especially about your particular incident.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, no problem. It was July. And I'll try to give you a long story short on it, but I was working a production, and at that time during, the prime time of COVID, anyone that was working in the entertainment industry, especially in events, our whole livelihood was shut down. By all means, the whole world had shut down, but the hospitality industry took a major hit because we don't have an office. We can't work from home. Our business is the people. I've always been the people. So it's like working with the people, engaging with the people, throwing that real-time interaction was something that once you take that away, it's like, oh, what do I do? Because this is all I know, So, of course, trying to think outside the box, like, how do I do something and still trying to make money? And, living in Miami, it's forever summertime here, and people that work in the industry were like, well, we gotta think things through, things outside the box. So at that time, a lot of folks were renting houses via Airbnb or doing whatever it was, or, getting secret private locations to throw events. Whether it was studios, whatever the cases was, just to get people outside, because people were losing their mind. If you could only imagine, of course the world knows how traumatic that shutdown was. But Miami, where we're not dealing with winter at any point, this is a city that everybody is outside 24/7. Like, our venues don't close till 6 a.m. Some are 24 hours. It's there's no time cap on when to sell alcohol. This is literally there's a party on the water, whether you're on a jet ski or you're on a boat. There's groups of people that are either bike riders from motorcycles or literally like bicycle, a group of people that are joggers, a group of people that are roller skaters. Like, this is a city that engages with from fitness, but outside living and being with the people. And the hospitality industry is massive. And when you take that away from literally 60%, well, that's 60% of society's employment here. Right. So if you could just imagine how many restaurants, how many venues that turn into after parties or clubs that were shut down, like that's literally about 60 to 70% of people's daily income.
Mm-hmm.
And that was stripped away. So I was like, all right, well, let me reach out to contacts that wanted to do events. And of course, people reached out to me too. But, I have to not try to, some other plans are like, absolutely not, because, they're, of course, scared of the health situation, of course. And by all means, they have their choice.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the other hand, people are scared of getting in trouble by the police.
Yeah.
I had neither one of those fears. I was like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm gonna get this money. So it was working for me for a while. However, it was one particular production that I did. And like I said, I won't get into specific detail, but I will say that, I was drugged and assaulted on a production that I worked, which was, if you could think about this, like I'm now 35 years old, and I'm only going to say this one time because everyone thinks I'm in my 20s. But I've been very blessed and highly favored to be in this industry for about 15 years. Just, and I'm not going to say it in the large entertainment, U.S. perspective, but things that I've done to engage with people since I was like, literally since I was 20, so I started working parties.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I've loved so much turned out to be the one thing that I would hate, because I'm like, how could something that I love so much hurt me?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never experienced that. But when I reflect on it, I think I don't regret it. And I know that sounds probably very strange to say and to like vocalize, but I really, really believe that it made me a better person from having that experience and that trauma in my life, because I would have never opened my eyes to the healing that I actually required and needed.
Yeah.
And, when I was 9 years old, I was molested by my uncle on my mother's side, and which is why I don't have any correlation really to any, like, on the Hispanic side of my family, right? I just don't, I don't gravitate to them. I don't bond with them. And then mind you, Miami is filled with Latin people right, left, and center, but I've never had that. My contact has always been with like my father himself, or, all West Indian people, because that's the culture I grew up under. And I felt like those were the ones that loved and protected me.
Mm-hmm.
But just based off of that experience as a grown woman, and then, having to, when you experience rape at an older age, and I don't think, even of course, rape at any age is disgusting, it's terrible, is the most egregious thing that you could ever feel. But sometimes when you're a child, and I think when a lot of people do this, it's like you have trauma that happens to you when you're a child, but because you're so focused on surviving, you just bury it. You never deal with it. You never heal from it. You just bury it and you keep going. You see friends that get killed when we're young, you bury it. You see people that you love get arrested, go to jail, you bury it. And all these things in life you end up burying as a child or as an adolescent, just because you have to survive. This was the first time I had a reality check where I had to check myself. It's not because what this person did to me was disgusting. What they did to me was disgusting, of course, but this is my first time as a grown woman where I was like, I have to fix this. I need to heal myself. And that took a deep dive into everything that I've ever felt. So things that I've, that I felt from a child, and that also, translated into relationships with, men in my life, people that I had did business, everything. It made me do a complete 180. And that's why I said, like, I don't regret it, because I truly believe that experience made me into a better person. But I also was able to open my eyes into how much healing the world really needs, and how many women, children are victims to assault, and there's such a lack of support towards it. And it's so fucking sad. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, but
speak your mind, girl. Speak your mind.
It's so fucking sad. And it's just even the trauma of like when even the part of, I think from young we get promoted to market, even like, oh, have an abortion, do these things. And we're not even understanding as a child that we're raping our rooms with metal objects because we're told this is a good thing to do, or you can't have a career if you get pregnant, and you got to just do this, or we're meant to be a sex icon or look a certain type of way. There's so many things that I had to unpack from decisions that I made privately and just things that I've experienced in life. But I really believe that moment, and obviously seeking therapy, and I will always encourage anyone to go to therapy. I think it's the greatest thing you could have done. I did therapy once a week for a full year, for almost a full year, because of that. And it was the hardest thing I ever did, but the most grateful thing I've ever experienced, because I feel that has helped me look at any situation where I have now too much stability, and I'm balanced in the sense when things come to me now that are supposed to break me, I will refuse to let you get to my spirit. But I know what it does what it could physically do to you, scientifically do to your brain and your whole DNA when you're under trauma.
Yeah.
So that was my experience in 2020. It took me a while to, obviously get back to society, which was not until close to the following year in 2021. And, it's growing pains, and you have to get used to working with people again. I know I had to, but again, I'm grateful for that, just alone for the healing and the maturity that I got posted.
Okay, so I'm sorry you even had to experience that. But I love your perspective now that you've come to the other side of it. It's interesting the way that you even said that, like going through that traumatic experience revealed healing that you didn't even know you needed to do. I can completely relate to that because I had a very traumatic experience just about 3 years ago, and didn't realize until I was forced to do the healing. So it opened up doors and wounds I didn't know existed. And in the healing is where I realized, as much as I hurt going through that trauma, the experience of it taught me so much and has made me a better person for it. So I can completely relate to your perspective on that. And you were talking about, especially when you grow up with, generational trauma, or you grow up, dealing with, families with addiction or any form of instability or things like that. Like there's so much trauma that a lot of people grow up with and don't realize that they've suppressed, and the body keeps the score. So all of that emotion that you're suppressing, it doesn't just go away. Your body feels that it affects your DNA, it affects, your brain, it affects how you function, it affects even the illnesses that you get when you get older. So you being able to go through therapy, and I agree with you. I believe everyone should be in therapy. I had a guest on about a year ago, and she was talking about, she's in the medical field, but she was like, therapy is like taking your car for an oil change. Like it's a tune-up. We should all, we shouldn't wait till there's an issue, right? We should all be learning coping mechanisms and healing mechanisms so that we can thrive and move forward. But I love how you, I guess, transmuted your pain into purpose.
Yes, it was necessary. I think it was. Thank you, and I appreciate that. But I think it was vital for the little girl in me. Like honestly speaking, I think I owed a lot to myself. Things that my family, like biological family, couldn't give me, or things I would see, like even as a child, like kind of jealous that other people had. But I owed it to myself to heal. Like I really, really owed it to myself. And even though it was given to me in such a traumatic way, there was my silver lining that I'm grateful that I was able to discover. And I was able to meet so many other brilliant and amazing souls along that process, men and women that experienced it. So many people touched my heart by their journey, by their stories, and just people in general. That it was like a community, a tribe of people that were just like, you're not alone. Yes. And it's sad to know that there's this much trauma out there, this much pain, there's so much sexual abuse. But like I said, I discovered my silver lining from it, but I really owed it to myself, but especially the little girl in me that I just couldn't, that wasn't able to enjoy life as the other ones, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
it was necessary. And like I said, like despite it all, I feel like a complete better person. I know I'm a better woman because of it.
I love that. I love that. Speaking of better woman, you announced recently on your Instagram, and your caption was, I quote, Rihanna crawled so I could walk. Miss Raw is officially Mama Raw. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I'm officially a mommy to be.
Congrats.
Thank you. It has been a journey to get here, shall I say, which I'll actually share with you because one, I wasn't anticipating. Well, let me say this: I've always wanted to be a mother and have my own family, just because of how messy my own was. That
Mhm.
I anticipated, just like I couldn't wait to look forward to be a mother, have my own family one day. From a child, it sounds crazy for me to even vocalize that.
Mhm.
Um, or just the thought of like sharing love with my own child that my real mom couldn't give me at that
Mhm.
time in life, you know. But I was so blessed to have other mother figures pour love into me. So the thought of like, okay, having a child, or having a family of my own was like, the idea was great. But ironically, in the summer of when obviously 2021, which was like, not too long ago, I started to get a lot of pain in my womb. And I never really understood. I'm like, why am I having this pain? I'm like, what's going on? Fast forward, I went to my OBGYN and they discovered I had fibroids.
Mhm.
And a lot of women experience fibroids, a lot of melanated women, Black, brown women, we have fibroids. It's something that we're more prone to.
Yeah.
A lot of it happens from society saying we have to be on birth control, these IODs, these medications, fibroids and PCOS. It's a very common thing. And even discussing your your menstrual pain of, am I like, you just expect it to be hurt, to be painful. You don't
Yeah.
expect it to, but you don't know what's like, how to gauge that. So when I found out I had fibroids, they told me I had 5. And the OBGYN at the time that I had was, well, you need to do the surgery. You need to remove this. You might have to get a hysterectomy, which is for some women who may not know what that is, or people. It's basically removing
Your
everything
uterus.
below. So I won't, your whole uterus,
Mhm.
getting rid of it. And I was just like, how could I'm not even a mom yet.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not, no. So I did a lot of digging into holistic healing at that time. And which is why I'm trying to say the silver lining to this is, we as people do healing, and this, like you said, the tune up, like it's like it's a tune up for your mind when you do, or your spirit when you do therapy. But healthy people like to do, like, you're like, let's do a colon cleanse, or let's juice, or let's be vegan. We negate Women tend to negate from the fact that we have a whole world inside of us. We bring life
Mhm.
inside of us.
Mhm.
And our womb needs healing as well. So if you've been sexually abused, you've had abortions, you've had miscarriages, you've been, just like insignificant lovers, whatever the case is, your body is holding this,
Yeah.
that energy. The same way your heart could hold it, your chest could hold it, your mind could hold it. And, like the human mind is a beautiful thing, but it just hides it. It's like a computer. It puts it in a
Yep.
dark
It
hidden
stores it.
file.
Yep.
It stores it. It's still there. So your womb, for a lot of women, have trauma.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do some healing. So which I led into just going, I was like, I'm not doing the surgery. And I'm like, if anyone knows the American health system, it's like an arm and a leg for everything. I was like, let me just switch up my whole diet, my whole livelihood. I reached out to this one. He's actually this Trinidadian man, Dr. Ware. He's here in Miami. I love him. Little dread man. Help me out. He had sickle cell, and he was able to combat his
Was
sickle cell.
that Dr. Sabi or no?
Pardon me? No, his name is Dr. Ware. But obviously, I'm very familiar with Dr. Sebi, of course,
Yeah.
But Dr. Ware is actually here in Miami, and he focuses on Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So when I
Okay.
went to go see him, he looked at my eyes, he looked at my hands, he looked at my tongue, he looked at my skin. And he was able to determine. I told him, what brought me here was because of the fibroids, but there was a lot of things he brought to my attention that I didn't know I was dealing with. So I went through a whole holistic journey of, doing colonics, literally changing my diet to 80% fruit. I had 20% veggies, getting all my water, literally all my water from fruits. I was from whether it was celery, cucumber, watermelon, pineapple. If you can imagine, literally, I was getting fresh coconut, and that's like I said, being in Miami is a great thing because we have coconut trees here everywhere.
Yes,
but I was able to get all my hydration straight from fruits. And then with the acupuncture I was doing certain more therapy for my womb and just healing and manifesting that. I was slowly removing and clearing out these fibroids and killing them. Now, mind you, as a woman, I can comfortably speak on this. I've had abortions in the past, and I made it, when I was one time when I was very young, when I was in my 20s, early 20s, and I remember how traumatic that experience was for me. Yet, but I wasn't mature enough for my emotions or my spirit or my knowledge and conscience to even understand it. I just did it. And, it was just a partner that I was with at the time. I was like, okay, well, I have to do this. This is not, I just thought I had to. And I did it again when I was in 2016, recently, like when I was here in Miami. And I remember this was before my 30th birthday. And I remember that feeling of this is the worst decision I'm ever making. And I remember that, like crying and praying, like 3 times I came into the room and I wasn't ready to do it because my body, or my inner God, was telling me, this is like, you're killing life. You're doing something to your body that you didn't even know. And at that time, I'm thinking this is what you're supposed to do if you want to be successful, if you want to have a business, if you have a relationship that's, on the lows and nobody knows because you can't put stigma on your career, or, people are they're going to be too much into your private world. You know what I mean? Your privacy. But I didn't understand that I'm actually medically raping myself at that time. And I know a lot of women, of course, by all means, people have different perspective on it. I'm so pro-life, but I made a horrible decision in the past me by negating from that. And I think that trauma stayed with my womb because fibroids isn't something that just happens overnight. This is something that builds over time. Right. They're benign tumors that grow, but also energy-wise, it's like having a broken heart. If you never heal your broken heart, you're just gonna harden. Everything about you is gonna harden. It's like having a bad kidney or having a bad liver. If you don't take care of it, it's just gonna keep getting worse. And I was carrying 5 fibroids, and that's a small amount compared to some women that had carried maybe 10 or 15, 20. But it's the sizing of it, and that was about to take away my ability to bring life into this world. And as a woman, and I say this like as a born woman, to bring life into this world, it's like, if we can't do that, in essence, you feel like that's like what your purpose is in this world. Is like, what is it for?
Yeah.
And of course, there are some women that are unable to give life, but they are an amazing mother figure. They're amazing leaders. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm so grateful for my adopted mother. She raised me exactly like her daughter to be. You get what I mean? But I felt like I made decisions. Now, the younger me, the uninformed me of like, okay, I had abortion, not understanding and now when I had a deja vu moment, like, oh my God, what do you mean I could never give birth again? Or this is going to be taken away from me. And I'm like, I played with life. I got rid of it just at the expense of just cause. So at that moment, my whole premise was like, I got to heal myself. Like I might have healed my mind. I might have healed my heart, but I didn't heal my womb. I didn't focus on that healing. So that was when I started, like in the month of like August, September, October, I was deep diving into healing my body as much as possible. I got back into work, but at that time that took premise over everything. And God so had it that he got me pregnant, that I got pregnant not too long after that. And now we're here, baby.
That is a beautiful blessing. And I love how, you spoke to holistic healing. I think too often we focus on one type of thing, whether someone believes wholeheartedly in the medical system, which has failed me and my family over and over again, or they wholeheartedly believe in one thing. But the holistic healing, I think that is the key to, our true healing. And your story is a testament to that. My story is a testament to that. So many other women that have come on the show can testify to the same thing. It's like, when you look at all aspects of your life, just not one, you may be able to heal a fraction of something just by focusing on the one part. But you recognizing in combination with the therapy and healing your mind and getting more in tune with your spirit and healing your womb, and all these things were integral to not only become the best possible version of Lisa Raw, but now to be, the best mom to be. Just even your perspective of life. So thank you for not only being so transparent and authentic in how you share your story, but just for your own resilience. Like, I feel like oftentimes I'll hear women say things like, well, I'm not as resilient as you, or I'm not as resilient as her. Or they hear your story and be like, wow, like, Lisa's so strong. But it's like, it's almost like you've been groomed that way. We don't realize resilience it's like a muscle that's strengthened. It's like going to the gym. You've had this not so easy upbringing, but you chose to get back up. You chose to look forward. You chose to move forward. And in doing so, as a woman now at the age of 35, like, you have so much resilience and you've built such strength. It's very admirable. So just thank you for being who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just hope, there's other women out there or other people. It's, like you said, it wasn't an easy journey, but it was something that, like a muscle that had to be groomed. It had to be trained, and my training, unfortunately, is like a double-ended sword. It came from trauma. But I really am, I'm a high believer in, in faith. I'm a high believer in silver linings. And I feel that, of course, there's moments when I'm like, this is the end for me. I don't see the bigger picture. I don't see the next day. But I think if you just try to take day by day, and whatever that process is for you, let it be that. But I'm grateful for the life I've lived thus far and experienced, because I think just I'm very grounded and I am on my being, and I've been blessed to be around so many people, and that I just really just look forward that I could probably help somebody else with my story, or even let alone for my own child. When, when my little one is born, I could just at least let them know about life, because I think society itself gives us everything that's so microwavable, and we think it's supposed to be perfect. Well, no, it's really not. It's life is hard. It is motherfucking hard.
Preach, girl. Okay, what is one thing that you wish women would do more of?
Love themselves. Love yourself. Just love yourself. Ladies, love yourself. Love yourself all the way. I think we put too much of ourselves to the side when it comes to relationships. We put too much of ourselves to the side when it comes to business. Love yourself. I think being a woman is the most greatest thing on earth. And here's the thing, I think society has made us believe that, like, we're supposed to be masculine beings, or we're supposed to be dominant in this. And, like, of course you could be dominant in certain aspects, but being a woman is such a beautiful thing. Love yourself.
Yeah.
Be gracious, be soft. And if you need to fight, of course, fight. Fight, but fight for protection, fight for the better cause, not just fight just because, you're trying to prove a point, or like your ego, or a trend. But definitely loving yourself. Like, I'm loving myself more and more and more every day. Even how my body is changing, the bonding that I'm having with my womb, seeing my belly grow. I think support is so necessary, and support for some people may look different. I think some people have a wonderful partner, and they're blessed to have that. And some people support is a best friend, or some people support is, like maybe it's a village of people, a group chat, or I don't know, whatever it is. But I think that support system, lean on that for counsel, or lean on that for your love. I am, and it sounds crazy for me to say this, because for myself right now, I'm a single mother at this point. I'm pregnant in a situation where I don't have the dynamic of the happy household, but I love myself too much, and I love the ability that what I'm gonna bring into this world, even way more than that. That's I can't even express that feeling. That is not defined off of a man or the perspective. It's defined off of what I'm going to create. And I think if you just learn to love yourself enough, you'll understand that nobody could really hurt you or detour you from your greater cause.
Love it. Love it. Wow. Lisa, can you tell the people where they can stay connected with you online to learn more from you and about you?
Yes. Well, you can follow me via Instagram. I have 2 Instagram handles. One that's for my business, LR Brand Events. That's where I usually put, work-related stuff. Personal, MS Lisa Raw, Miss Lisa Raw. I also have Twitter. I don't really, I sometimes dabble in the Twitter. But yeah, probably Instagram. Or you can just email me, info@lisaraw.com. I know right now I'm not as social or not as working as I used to be. I'm kind of enjoying being this Mama Raw vibe right now. I'm trying to prep for baby Raw, so that's where my brain is right now. But I'm just a text, a email, or a DM away if you needed to reach out.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lisa. I will definitely have all of your details in the details section so they can just click and connect with you directly. They don't have to search too far. I truly appreciate you sharing your journey with us, sharing your gems and your wisdom. And I am positive that the women listening will gain something from hearing your story, because I know I definitely have today. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for not giving up for all these months to get me on the show. I'm sorry that I've negated for a while, but I was going through a lot.
I totally understand, and I respect it. So.
But yes, this conversation was amazing, and I love it. I can't wait to share the podcast as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Honestly, if there's anything that you are doing that I could be of value to and assist, I'd be more than happy to do so. And, to all of you legacy leavers out there, until next time, make sure that you subscribe on all platforms. Don't forget to rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We would love to hear what part of Lisa's story resonated with you. What was your takeaway? What was your aha moment? I just want to thank each and every one of you that continues to listen each week to help the show globally rank in the top 1.5% of most popular shows. And that's out of over 2.8 million podcasts. Thank you. So if you want to screenshot this week's episode, and you can tag Lisa at MSLISARAW, that's her personal page, or her business page is at LR Brand Events, and you can tag myself at The Real McKinney Smith, and continue to walk in greatness in your stilettos in a manner worthy of your calling.